Hello everyone, my name is Danny. This review is for the movie called The Dark Stranger. This is a 2015 film. It doesn't seem to have a rating. It runs an hour and a half, and it stars Katie Finlay, Alex Ozerov, and Enrico Colantoni. Colantoni? Sounds good. The description: haunted by a terrifying spirit out of her graphic novel, a young artist struggles to overcome her psychosis before it destroys her. This is The Dark Stranger. Well, thank you everybody for watching this video. This comes to me by research. It's an older movie, and I was able to find it because I watched something like it last month and didn't know anything about it going in. Seemed really interesting. It says on the description that it's animation, horror, and a thriller. I think that's the three words they used to describe it. So I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm getting into, but let's do it. And when I started the movie and it starts talking about this young artist's mother, I'm like, well, that's not what the description was about. So apparently this girl and her mother are going kind of through the same thing, but the girl goes through it after the mother dies. So I don't think that's giving away anything. It's just what happens. And so after the mother dies is what this movie source material is about. It does have flashbacks to her and her mother. It does have to explain some things that way, but everything else happens in real time for her dealing with her mother's death. So that's like the big thing. First and foremost, I want to say some good things about this because then I have to trash it. I really like the father in this movie. I know he's done some good things. I'm not sure exactly what, but he's one of those familiar guys that you just don't know what he's done exactly. And so he is a nice dad. I do appreciate him in this movie. Not so much the brother. He's just kind of a brat. He's not really understanding what's going on. I really think he's not the greatest actor. Maybe he needs to grow up a little bit in his experience, and maybe this movie will help him with that. But he needs to realize that as the brother in this movie, he should have realized what's going on a little bit. He's not like 12 years old. He's not too young to realize, who's going through what, and that he needs to be sympathetic to that. So I struggled with the brother for sure. There's some other people that play a small role in this, and I thought they played their roles pretty well. Didn't really know what was going on, so the mystery of those characters was good, that we didn't know exactly what their motivation was, or what their meaning was or purpose in the movie. So for them to keep that mystery mostly throughout the film, like through 3/4 of the way through, that's good. So then we get to the point where we don't really know what was going on in this movie. It does have animation, and it's cool. Art, animation, drawing, imagination world, kind of like Mary Poppins or something. They just kind of, this girl gets transported into this other world, and it's all very nice, impressive artwork and artistry and animation, whatever. Even though it made no sense to me half the time. So then we get to the point where it's supposed to be a thriller and action, whatever, horror. Like it doesn't ever make me scared. It's not the right word for it. It's a very interesting movie. I'll give it interesting, but it's not scary. You sympathize with this girl, what she's going through and everything, and it's tough, it's hard to lose a loved one and all that stuff, but it's not a horror film. It never gets to that point for me, and I'll tell you why. Okay, this is my big problem with this movie. The Dark Stranger in this movie is kind of, we'll call him the bad guy, okay? And the young girl is what he desires. I think that's safe to say. Because I told you she's going through something. That's pretty much what she's going through. So, the explanation of that whole situation, I can't even explain to you. I can barely explain to myself. But the way I explain to myself is the storyline from Phantom of the Opera. If you had no idea what Phantom of the Opera is, I'm sorry, but I'm going to continue to talk about it. So in that movie, the Phantom of the Opera, he desires this young girl who sings well, just like the Dark Stranger does. And then it turns into a triangle with this other guy, just like Phantom of the Opera. And it has an older person warn them about the dark person, just like Phantom of the Opera. And so I just kept saying that throughout this movie. Like every single detail of the animation when they were telling the story of the Dark Stranger is exactly like Phantom of the Opera. I don't know how they get away with it. I don't know how they're not being sued. I don't know how this movie got made, but it bothers me very much. And I don't like people taking ideas from other movies. It gets redundant. It gets stupid. And like, I kept thinking about this movie overnight because I watched it last night. And I thought, you know what? This seems like a Netflix movie because Netflix has a Netflix version of A Quiet Place. It has a Netflix version of, maybe an animated car movie or something like that. Just take your pick. You can probably find a Netflix version of it. And so it just seemed like a ripoff, and I just don't know how they're able to take the exact same idea and concept. And so that part of the movie was horrible for me, and I was agonizing, torture, painful. But the rest of the movie was a little bit nice and genuine and kind of interesting and kind of heartfelt. And like I said, I really like the mystery of it, even though I can't explain it. Just because I can't explain something doesn't mean I don't like it. I just think people need to do better and, reach out to their viewers and maybe explain one or two things just so that we are hanging with you. It's a tense movie. It's creative, and I have to give it those props. So I've seen some really, really bad movies, like The Bye Bye Man or It Follows, there have just been some really awful movies of this genre, of this category, and I don't think this is one of the worst ones. It bothers me about the content being the same as Phantom of the Opera. It bugs me that the acting could have been a little bit better. I don't really care about the story not making sense because I think people don't always need everything explained to them, and if something doesn't make sense to people, maybe they're not smart enough to figure it out. I do think that sometimes. There are some really smart movies out there. So, I just think it's a shade above the movies that I would call really, really awful. So, I'm going to give The Dark Stranger above my worst grade, which is a C-, and I really can't suggest it to you, but it's so, nagging in the back of my brain that this movie is better than some other movies that I've seen by a hair. So maybe some people would appreciate it more than I would. If they don't really care about the comparison between Phantom of the Opera, if they don't really know about it, and they don't care that they can't understand it. So it's a mixed movie for me for sure, but as far as suggesting it, but I just had a hard time with it, and I'll probably never watch it again, but it's a different movie. So if you want to give it a shot, I'm going to give a C- to The Dark Stranger. Thanks a lot, guys. My name's Danny. If you like this or any of my other videos, try and get some of them to watch. Like and subscribe to my channel if you would. And enjoy your movies. Thanks.